Welcome everyone and welcome to this week's F1 track guide for the iRacing Grand Prix Tour series, the 100% series as it's commonly known or alternatively known. This week we are at Phillip Island in Australia, Melbourne, in conjunction with the Australian Grand Prix that is happening in real life. Now unfortunately Albert Park, which is where the real life race is held, is not on iRacing, so we have to go a little bit down the road, a couple of hours in fact, to Phillip Island. Now this track to me is personally underrated. It doesn't get enough credit or recognition probably. I think it gets credit but not enough recognition. It's a very fast, free-flowing track and I always enjoyed coming around here in the F3 cars. Now its bigger brother, of course, the F1 car is much faster and of course has a considerably more amount of downforce available to us. And it's a real joy to drive and it really does get around this track very quickly. In fact, the time that I set was a 105.9. That is in the fixed setup, which we always run in these track guides. With a full tank of fuel, we're stuck in the balanced ERS mode, and as you can see as well, we have the red wall tyre on, the soft tyre. So these track guides are all about making you quicker, but ultimately more consistent, and hopefully you'll be able to make it to the end of a 100% race, because it's not an easy task, especially in this car. Now, as always, we set the track conditions as per iRacing's schedule. So that means that we set the time and date as it is detailed in the calendar, and then we generate the weather on that basis. Now, hopefully that means that it is going to give us a track condition that is consistent with what we'll see in sessions throughout the week. And it means it's a relative time that you guys can compare to using obviously the same setup and full tank of fuel. Qualifying setups, of course, you're going to go much quicker because you have the qualifying mode enabled on the battery and you have a much lighter tank of fuel. So yeah, you will go extremely faster than the time that you set here. But as always, we are trying to make you last until the end of the race, and because that's where it's won. We can all be very quick over a single lap. Can we do it over 60, 70 odd laps consistently? That's the tough ask. Now, as always, guys, we're going to have a look at that lap, the 105.9, from a cockpit view, then a far chase camera angle, and then we're going to analyze that lap, see how we put it together, where to brake, where to turn in, certain things to keep an eye out for, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about strategy as well, because in a 100% race, tyre strategy does come into it. So yeah, let's head into it. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and enjoy. So that was the lap from far chase, camera angle and cockpit view. Let's have a look at how we put that together. So just before we head into it, as we are on the start finish straight, as always, want to bring your attention to my brake bias. This big orange number on the dash is indicating 54. The furthest back we can have our brake bias is 53, which is generally where I like to have it. Of course, brake bias is personal preference. There is no right or wrong answer. But as we have quite a few high-speed braking zones on this track, which means the load of the car is going to be transferred more onto the front of the car, I've moved my brake bias further forward than I normally do, and this seemed to work well for me. However, I am going to experiment moving it even further forward to see if I can get more speed, brake later, and see where that threshold is in regards to locking up the front tyres. But as always, guys, use this as a base. Go out there, try it for yourself and see what works for you. Now, the lap, let's have a look. So, we are on the start finish straight and just want to bring your attention to the markers here, and this is our one and only DRS zone on the track, and we'll get to the last corner of course as we make our way round the lap itself. But the last corner is very important here, because if you're following someone, if you can stick within that DRS, within that 1 second, the DRS is very powerful around here, and I think you will easily be able to overtake someone if they're a second ahead of you, or I would say from 0.8 seconds. If you're within 0.8 seconds, you will be able to get past them, because DRS is very powerful around here. With the slipstream, it is full throttle from the last corner all the way round to the second corner, in fact. But we have to be careful with our DRS deployment here, and as we play this forward, DRS is now activated. It is open with the 4 green lights on the dash indicating this. We move the car over to the left hand side to open up for the fast right hander, but as I just said, we need to be careful of the DRS deployment here, because this right hander is flat out all the way up until you get to the long left-hander, which I would say is a hairpin. But it's a very long left-hander, because if you don't close your DRS here, guys, this will happen. Not very nice, that, was it? A bit spectacular, because we are going at very high speeds, over 300 kilometers an hour to be exact. So that is a very high speed crash or spin. We want, of course, to not lift off here. If we lift off, yes, the DRS will deactivate, but why lift off to deactivate the DRS when we can just press the button and deactivate it ourselves? Now, we want to be doing this, as you can see just there, just before we get to the end of the blue and white curb on the left hand side, because we do not want to be turning into the corner with DRS still open, because we don't have a lot of downforce. So we want to shut that DRS so that it activates that level of downforce that these cars provide, and we can stick it round this corner full throttle. So yeah, you want to be closing that DRS before you get to the end of the blue and white curb on the left hand side. And you can see there we're turning in, keeping it tight to the apex, all the while full throttle, as you can see from my throttle inputs. The car may wriggle a little bit around here. Now, I haven't done enough testing, which we'll discuss a little bit later on in regards to tyre strategy, but I haven't done enough laps around here to know how this corner, or how the car will react going around this corner with warm tyres. It may be, guys, that you have to lift off because you'll lose the grip. The car was a little bit, it was wiggling a little bit around this corner, So just be wary there as the tyres start to degrade and you start to lose grip. But this may require a slight lift to go around here just to settle the car. But we keep the car over to the right hand side here. We don't want to be too far over because this track, which you'll find, has no runoff areas whatsoever. It is just grass everywhere. So if you go off the black stuff, we know what iRacing's grass is like. There's no grip there whatsoever. So we do not want to be dipping any wheel onto the grass because yeah, you'll spin and you'll be very lucky to be able to come back onto the track. That's all I'm going to say. So you can see here, we've got our car pointing to the right-hand side of the track, and you can see we've got a very wide, long left-hander ahead of us. Now, braking for this corner is a little bit difficult because there is no visual marker, shall we say. I would say this corner is all about feel. I personally would like to be able to tell you guys that there is something visually that I'm looking at to brake, but it's once you've run enough laps around here, you'll get the feel of where is the right place to brake and where isn't. But what I'll explain to you guys is that if we just bring it back a touch here, as the corner really comes into view and you're quite close to it, there's no other real way to say it, and it's not probably what you guys want to hear, but the car is pointing middle right of the track here, and then I suppose as the hut on the left hand side is coming onto your left hand side of the car. But in all honesty, guys, I'm not looking at this. I'm just looking into the apex. As I'm looking into the apex and I can see it start to appear, that's when I brake. Now, we do not want to be tight to this apex upon entry. This is a corner. It's a very difficult corner, believe it or not. It's very easy to go wide because it's a left-hander and it's off camber as well. So it's a fast left-hander. You take the entry quite wide and then you're coming back into the apex. And it's very easy to just run out wide here, run out of track, and on the exit of the corner as well. And as well, guys, this corner is so treacherous on the first lap. So be careful here. Just don't chance your arm. End of the day, this is a 100% race. Get round this corner in one piece. Just don't even worry about overtakes. I know some of you will be going, blasphemy. Once the race starts, I'm there to race. But let's be honest, it's too many crashes happen on the first lap in this car, and this corner does not help that. So be careful. And as you can see here, we're shifted down into 6th gear, and you want to be going around here in 6th gear. But you can see as I've got halfway around this corner, I've lifted off of the brake. And I'm just allowing the momentum of the car to take me through the corner. And you can see we're still not tight to the apex here. We've allowed the car to travel into the middle of the track and then come back in as we're coming over the crest. Now, as you can see, just as we're about to reach to the crest, we get on the throttle. Slowly applying the throttle here, because it's very easy to get on full throttle too early. I have done it a couple of times where I've got on full throttle here, where this hut is on my left hand side, and you think you've got enough downforce and you don't. You just run out of track very quickly. But what I want you guys to keep an eye out for is if we just bring this back a touch. Don't know if you guys can see it, but on the inside of the curb here, as we're about to hit the apex, the curb, there's like a concrete patch, a white concrete patch, but it's on the inside of the apex. Now this is where you are then going to get on full throttle. As you can see, we've hit that concrete patch and we are on full throttle. Left wheels are on the blue and white curb. And that's when you know you can comfortably get on full throttle and you won't run out of track. And then it's a case of just slightly opening up the steering, moving over to the right hand side of the track, and then it's full throttle all the way down to the next corner, covering as little track as possible as well there, hitting the apex. And then we come down into our second overtaking opportunity, which is a much slower and tighter hairpin. Now, what we want to keep an eye out for is the 100 ball marker on our left hand side, but we aren't going to brake on this 100 ball marker. It's very easy to overshoot this corner. If you watch my throttle inputs, we are braking what I would say is around the 130 mark, the 120 mark. So we're braking just before the 100 ball marker. I tried a number of times to brake on the 100 ball marker and I just wasn't able to slow the car down quick enough. I just locked up the front tyres and yeah, just, I don't know, I can't seem to be able to do it. Maybe some of you can, but it was just, yeah, I wasn't comfortable with the control of braking at 100 ball marker. So I brake at a 125 and we are going to shift down here, guys, while in a straight line, all the way into second gear. And we're going to be looking into the apex and turning in. If you want to know when to turn in, that's when just before you get to the end of the blue and white curb on the left hand side. And you can see here I'm trail braking and then I've released the brake. I've released the brake before I've got into the apex. And I did still lock up a front right tyre, so I held onto the brake just a little bit too long. Very, very easy to do here. And unfortunately, when we talk about tyres in a little bit, it's very punishable on the front right round here. It seems to be that the front right, it locks up and there's a lot of fast left-hand corners, which is why it's very punishable on the right-hand tyre. But we're allowing the car to just roll round the corner here, as you can see. Not on throttle yet. And then as the car is pointing perpendicular with the hut in the far background, we start to cover the throttle. I probably could have gotten throttle a little bit earlier, if I'm honest. A little bit hesitant around this corner, probably due to the lockup. And then we slowly ease on the throttle. Make sure we get the car pointing straight, short shift into third, and then trust the traction and quickly move the car over to the right hand side into this another slightly quicker, but not as quick as the first long hairpin left-hander. Now, if you're tight out of the hairpin to someone, you get a good exit, you can make a sneaky overtake here on the inside. I wouldn't recommend overtaking on the outside because you will see in a second you'll probably just get crowded out of the corner just because of the nature of the corner itself. So an overtake on the outside here just isn't worth it. You can maybe try and unsettle them to do a cutback, but it's very risky, very risky. So what we want to keep an eye out for is this blue and white curb on the right hand side, and the end of it where it comes into a point is where we want to be braking, as you can see. And once again, very similar to the first long hairpin, is we don't want to be tight to this corner because it's a very late apex. If you're tight here, you're going to run out of track on exit. So we want to hang it in the middle of the track. And you can see here, I'm off throttle. I'm just allowing the car to roll round here. I'm not holding onto the brake for too long. In third gear. And then, as you can see, as the car is pointing pretty much perpendicular to the apex and the grass here, that's when we get on full throttle. That's when we start to get on throttle. So if you want a particular point of when to get on full throttle, it can be just after the end of the tyre wall here. I was a little bit wide of this apex. You can see my left wheel isn't as tight to the apex as I would like it to be. So a little bit of time lost here, a little bit of delay in regards to getting on full throttle, because if I did, I would have run out of track here on the right hand side. And then we can get 2 wheels on this curb here. Now guys, very, very important, and this is speaking from experience here, do not touch the grass at all with any of your right wheels here. If you get particularly that right rear tyre on this grass, you will end up over the left hand side of the track every single time, no doubt. It's just you'll probably end up over in the middle of the grass over here, severe damage, suspension broken. So if it means delaying your throttle input just a touch to make sure that you don't run out wide, do it, because that is a no-go. You cannot go wide at that corner. So moving on, quickly moving over to the left-hand side, covering as little track as possible. Same here as it moves left and right. Full throttle, and then we come up to the hardest section on the track. Now, if you're a brave man, you can try and overtake in here, but I would not recommend going side by side because it will more likely end in a crash. But we want to be over to the right hand side here. We're going to be in 7th gear, and then as we get a little bit way round this corner, just before we're getting up to the crest, you'll feel the car shift. You'll feel the car want to move over to the right hand side. That's when you lift off the throttle. We're not touching the brake, we're just lifting, because this car's got a lot of downforce, but we don't need the brake to get the front nose of the car turning in. But what we want to do is half throttle, and then we're back on full throttle to keep it tight enough to this apex. Now we don't want to be completely tight to this apex because you'll lose time. The only way to do that is to lift off the throttle quite severely, and we don't want that. So around half throttle, you can be tight to the apex as you come to the crest of the hill here, but not before it. And then on the top here, where it's flat, this is where we want to brake, because just past this 50 here is a little hill into a tight right hand corner where we're going to be shifting down from 7th gear to 2nd gear, and it is very, very easy to lock up your tyres. In particular, once again, that front right tyre, and it is pretty much a 90-degree angle this corner. So if you overshoot this right-hander, you're off the track, you're in the grass, and worst case, you're in the barrier and your race is over and done with. So you can see here, just before the 50, just before we get to this downhill slope over the crest, we are braking in a straight line. The reason we want to be tight to that apex as we hit the crest, as we go back, so the reason why we want to be tight here on the apex as we hit the crest, is what I mean, is so that we can keep it tight to the left hand side of the track to open up this 90-degree right hander as best we can to get the best exit we can, because this corner here is not technically the last corner, but I deem it as being the last corner, because from here you are full throttle all the way down to the 2nd corner. So it's so important. Now, shifting down into 2nd gear, and you'll notice that I'm off the brake before I get into the apex. Now, this is important, guys, because if you hold onto the brake just a tad too long, you will lock up the front right tyre. And in fact, I did slightly. If we just play it in slow motion here, and watch that front right, look, it locked up ever so slightly. I got away with it. I didn't lose a lot of speed, but it's very easy to lock it up quite severely there and run out of track and completely overshoot the corner. As we rewind it back, we're tight to the apex. And then as we get to the apex, that's when we're on the throttle, second gear. Being careful not to apply too much throttle, guys, because as you can see, the steering lock is pretty much full and you will spin that car if you get on full throttle. And then you can short shift into third and just trust the downforce here, guys. In any other car, you'll have to lift around this corner. But here, you can trust the downforce. This is what this car is built for, high speed corners. Making the use of the outside of the track, and then it's just full throttle all the way. Tight to the apex as you can, covering as little track as you can. And then we're back on the start-finish straight. DRS open, and then it's rinse and repeat. And there we go, guys. That is a lap around Phillip Island. It all happens very quickly, as I said, a 1 minute 5.9. Yeah, it's going to provide for some good racing here, I think, this week. Thoroughly enjoy this track, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, let's have a little conversation about tyre strategy. So, guys, as I said earlier on in the lap analysis about tyres, I haven't done, unfortunately, enough practice to find out what the degradation of the tyres is going to be. So I can't give you, unfortunately, a very accurate tyre strategy based upon data. I haven't been able to gather enough of it. But I have found out a little bit of information in the little amount of laps that I've run. This track, as I said earlier on, is very punishable on that front right tyre. We have a lot of very fast left-hand corners here, and that means that the weight is shifting over to the right-hand side of the car and punishing that right tyre. Also, as I said, there are a couple of hairpins here, or a couple of corners here really, where it's very easy to lock up the tyres, in particular the front right tyre. Not the left, the front. So if you do lock up, it's also going to punish that right tyre. So when you're running throughout the race, especially on the soft tyre, which I'll get to in just a second, is definitely going to be run here depending on track temperatures. It will be worth just taking it easy around those very high speed corners or those left-handers, particularly the second corner that we just went through on your screen, and then that very fast left-hander just before you get to the crest and that 90-degree sharp right-hand corner. Because, yeah, that is where it's really going to take it out of your tyres. And, of course, if you can avoid lock-ups, more the better. Now, strategy itself. Now, track conditions, bit of a weird one because, I don't know, the track conditions here were not very hot. It was mid-20s. I would expect in Australia for the track conditions to be a lot hotter. Now, if the track conditions are as they were in the lap that I set, around the mid-20s, then if you're at the front of the grid, I would suggest starting on the soft tyre because you want to be as quick as you can at the start to try and pull out a lead or at least stay with the leaders. From then on, you can see how your race pans out and make your soft tyres last as long as you can, or go for position and try and break out of that DRS zone from the guy behind, because that's really what it's going to be all about here, is getting out of the DRS zone from the guy behind or catching them to get to that DRS zone, because it is so powerful around here. And then changing onto the medium tyres and making them last to the end of the race. If you're starting a little bit further back on the grids, you could try going longer on the medium tyre to start off with and then be quick at the end on the softs. If the track conditions are hotter and get into the 30s, then it may be that it's a medium, vice versa. You go up at an extra compound, so medium hard or hard to mediums. I don't think it's going to be that hot, so I don't think the hard is going to be used here this week. So one of the two options, depending on where you are on the grid. they're the ones for you to consider. I wish I had a lot more data to tell you exactly what the tyre degradation will be on these tyres, but yeah, just my little bit of advice will be, no matter what strategy you use, look after that front right, because if you do, I think you're gonna suit yourself well in this race. So that's it, guys. I hope that has been a lot of help to you. I hope you have successful races, you're all able to make it to the end, and yeah, we're able to improve your lap times as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for dropping by. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and see you for the next one. Bye.